All right, staying on with more news from Pakistan. Forced disappearances seem to become a new normal in the country. In the past couple of months, a number of people have been reported that their loved ones are missing. Now, they said that their family members were picked up by men who were described to be in their civilian clothes, and then these relatives of theirs were never seen again. In some cases, it's actually been much worse. The corpses of people have also been found on the roadside a couple of days after they went missing. So the question, of course, is what exactly is happening in Pakistan? Well, it is a breakdown of law and order and a clear case of state brutality. The victims are mostly Pashtuns, the Urdu-speaking Muhajirs, and also the Baloch or members of the Shia community who are, in fact, subjected to enforced disappearances. The journalists and social media activists too have not been spared. Basically, if you are someone who's speaking out against the state or are seen as a threat in any form, then you could potentially be taken out. The data says that at least about 5,507 people have gone missing since the year 2014, and this is data that is only until last October. Locals say that the numbers are actually much higher. According to reports, at least about 20,000 people have been abducted from Balochistan alone. Locals found bullet-riddled bodies of 2,500 of these men, and the situation has become so bad that the United Nations has had to step in. The United Nations Human Rights Commission has written a letter to Pakistan. The Imran Khan-led government has been told to stop enforced disappearances. The letter reads, and I quote here, "You may know that enforced disappearances is a human rights concern that has great personal resonance with the High Commission. Therefore, we offer you any assistance that the office can provide to help end this practice in Pakistan." This, of course, is a letter that has been written by the United Nations Human Rights Commission. Now, forget about trying to end this brutality. Imran Khan's government has in fact denied playing any role in these forced disappearances. The government has also issued a press release just 2 days after receiving the letter from the United Human Rights Commission. Pakistan's press release reads, and I quote here, "Our hearts go with the families of the missing people. However, we must realize that not every missing person is attributable to the state." Now, all fingers, of course, point to Pakistan's notorious military.
तो मिसिंग पर्सनस का कमीशन कायम किया गया, उस पर बहुत सारी डेवलपमेंट हुई। जो इनिशियल फिगर आए थे उससे बहुत कम हो गया, और हुकूमत और उनके साथ इदारों की मिलकर कोशिश है कि इस मसले को लॉजिकल कंक्लूजन तक पहुंचाएं।
So that was Asif Ghafoor, the DGISPR there, stating that the numbers of people who are missing are actually not as high as are being reported in the media, but are actually substantially low, is what he claims. And what is also ironical is that in the midst of all of this, Imran Khan's PTI, that is Pakistan's Tehreek-e-Insaf, had the issue of enforced disappearances in its election manifesto, but it's been almost a year since Imran Khan's party has formed the government in Pakistan. And like several of his other promises, his promise of a crackdown on forced disappearances have also vanished in thin air. All right, after months of unrest, Sudan might finally be staring at some kind of peace. A power-sharing agreement aims to start a new era in the country, and let's break it down as to what this means for the country.
From clashes to celebrations. The unrest in Sudan may finally be a thing of the past. The country's military council and the coalition of opposition and protest groups have reached an agreement. The two sides have decided to share power during a transition period leading to elections. They agreed to form an independent and technocratic government and also launch a transparent investigation into the violence that engulfed Sudan in recent weeks. The promises also include establishing the most efficient procedures that would create the best environment for reconciliation. These talks were being held in Khartoum and were mediated by the African Union.
The two sides have also agreed on establishing a sovereign council by rotation between the military and civilians for a period of 3 years or slightly more. They have also agreed upon forming a civilian government called the Government of Independent Skillful Patriotism, headed by a Prime Minister of similar qualities.
The deal follows a month of unrest and violent clashes. After the deposition of former President Omar al-Bashir, both the Transitional Military Council and the opposition coalition were wrangling over what form the transitional government should take. And the consensus has set off celebrations across Sudan. The mood overall, though, is that of cautious optimism.
The freedom and change movement is the leadership, but the real leadership is the street. Simultaneously, our tools are still in place. Today they formed a council. If we like it, then fine. But if we do not like it, then our tools are still in place. There is no need to diverge. In the end, our government will be a civilian one, despite anyone.
I'm sending a message to the Freedom and Change movement and to the Military Council. If you work well, then fine. If you do not, look at the past 4 or 5 months. We will take to the streets for the 4th and 5th time until we find the Sudan we want to live in.
The opposition groups have said that the agreement is the beginning of a new era, one that paves the way for the formation of a transitional authority. The purpose, they say, is to move forward with the people. The expectations are high, and the people for now are hopeful. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And we also earlier spoke to our correspondent Patrick Hoyt in South Sudan in terms of what is happening there, and this is what he had to say.
Yes. People are very excited. People have actually been on the street celebrating immediately when this announcement was made. So people are very hopeful that finally peace is coming to Sudan. People will leave the streets where they have been protesting against Omar al-Bashir's government, and then later when Omar al-Bashir was ousted, they started protesting against the military council. Now there's an agreement in place, so they are hoping to go back. The business people will go back to conduct their businesses. The workers will go back to their offices. The good thing with Sudan is that at least there are structures in place, so people will go back to their jobs. And what is next, as you ask, what is next is that this was an announcement of an agreement that was made between the parties. Now what is going to happen is that next week on Monday, on the 8th, there will be a formal signing of the agreement. This agreement is going to be signed, of course, in front of African leaders. They have not yet named who exactly will be there. But once this is signed, then there will also be a roadmap on when this government will be formed. And because they have talked of, for example, agreement that has been reached, 5 members of the civilian or those who protested, their representatives, and then 5 members from the Transitional Military Council, and then 1 person is supposed to be agreed upon by the parties who will be a civilian to join that government, and then they will now work on details of forming a government. So the roadmap will be clear once agreement has been signed. So that will now give people a sense of exactly how many ministers will be there. Of course, people now know that the government will run for 33 months. And a roadmap will now give us a clear indication of what or when the government will be formed and how many ministers will be there or ministries and such details.
All right, that was our correspondent Patrick Hoyt there from South Sudan.